Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Snowball podcast. Today's title is Motability Changes, Is Your Independence Risk? Hello, my name's Simon and I'm the founder of Snowball. So please download the Snowball app because everyone deserves everywhere. What we're going to be talking over the course of this series is real stories affecting the disabled community and hearing from real people. To give it a bit of context, I am a qualified journalist, but also the founder of Snowball. I have a disability. I'm effectively paralysed from the waist down due to a spinal injury in 2014. I'm also a wheelchair user. And for the context of this episode, I am also a Motability scheme customer. I have an adapted vehicle. You will also notice that I am reading from a script. The reason for this is I am severely dyslexic. So today is a big one. There have been major changes announced to the Motability scheme, including reduced mileage, increased costs, and changes that can significantly impact the day-to-day lives of disabled people across the UK. This isn't just about a car, this is about independence, dignity, and the ability to live your life. So today, we were, or should have been, speaking directly to Motability to understand why these changes were happening, how they affect users, whether enough has been done enough to protect people on the scheme. However, going back and forth through to the press office, they were going to provide someone to come on the show. However, instead, they just sent us a statement. I'll put it on the comments below for full transparency. The four main changes that are happening to the Motability scheme are lower mileage allowance, halving it from 20,000 miles per year to 10,000 miles per year, increased excess mileage fees. So if you go over the 10,000 miles, you'll be charged 25 pence per mile. That includes VAT. A new tyre replacement service. You'll have a maximum limit of 6 tyres per lease. New changes for European travel. Taking your vehicle abroad will no longer be fully covered for free. Okay. What is important is to announce that the Scottish Government have put a stop to the Motability changes as they do not agree with it. However, Parliament has not. I should also add there is a petition online on the government website. So if you Google stop changes to the Motability scheme, it will pop up, and we'll also put the link into the petition, of course, in the comments below. To help me go through the Motability changes, I have a legal barrister from Premier Legal in Nottingham called Adrian Barnes, who's been a barrister for over 25 years. Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Simon.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, I take it you'll fully understand what the Motability scheme is and how it's there to help impact people with disabilities.
Yes, indeed. It's a fabulous scheme. Obviously, it's a brilliant idea. The unfortunate thing from a point of view of the law, if you like, is that it's essentially a private scheme, or it's a trust or foundation backed up by a private scheme. It's not really a government scheme. I know lots of people think that it's a government scheme, but it's actually a private leasing company to all intents and purposes. So complaints to the government, well done to Scotland if they've stepped in. I'm not 100% sure how they're entitled to step in, apart from the fact, I suppose, they provide some funding. From a legal point of view, if we're wondering whether the changes are discriminatory, it's very difficult to see how they might be discriminatory, because mobility is only available for people with a disability in the first place. So we can't compare somebody who's not disabled because they're not entitled to be in the scheme in the first place. So it's just a closed circuit, if you like. It's only for disabled people.
Great workout. Do you want to go get a bite to eat?
What are you thinking?
That brand new place on the corner.
Apparently they don't have a wheelchair ramp.
Who says that?
Snowball.
What's Snowball?
It's an app dedicated to the disabled community. It shows places to have good access.
Cool.
Yeah, it gives people the confidence to go out and socialise with ease.
So why is it called
Because the more people that use, the better it's for everybody. You can leave reviews, add pictures, even say if you go back.
Oh, so like the snowball effect.
Snowball.
Try the app today and socialise with ease.
Let's talk through the changes. Let's take them one by one. I've got some examples from social media as well, because I posted this the other day saying I was leaving the Motability scheme because of the changes. I've been on the scheme personally for 12 years since my injury. I thought it was a fabulous scheme when I joined. However, it's just not viable for me to be on the scheme anymore. So I am personally coming off it because of my circumstances. I travel a lot for work for the app, and I travel not only in the UK but all over the world as well. So let's take this one by one. So the mileage allowance, okay, and this is going from 20,000 miles per year to 10,000 miles a year. Okay. Now, many people don't have a choice but to rely on their vehicle. It's not just about convenience. It's about essential things like hospital appointments, work, and just basically leaving the house. And I've got a couple of examples here from social media. I've got one here. One that actually stood out for me, here it is by Ray Care. And he says he has a child who is a full-time wheelchair user. And in January, they can't afford to be on the scheme because just getting their child to school is 13,000 miles a year. Yeah. I'm guessing he doesn't go into much detail. I'm guessing he goes to a specialist school. Now, that's not taken in consider of any hospital appointments or normal day-to-day operations. Now, what's happened is in their circumstances, he says that they have to now get one-to-one support from the local authority because they can no longer be on the Motability scheme. And it's going to cost the council £240 a day over 37 weeks, which is £62,000 a year from the local authority because they can't afford to be on the Motability scheme anymore. And they are, from the sounds of it, they're terrified and upset. And that's just one prime example. It's going to cost taxpayers more because of the scheme as well, because being on the Motability scheme will not cost £62,000 a year for this child. The next one is Dr. Abigail Pearson, who's put, she's terrified and it's so unjust. I rely on my lab because I live rurally, so I have to travel every day. I don't have a choice. This is my social life. And she goes, she is terrified about what the cost is going to be because she lives in the countryside. And then David Burdis also says he's a freelancer. He does audits and travels up and down the country. For him to go to London, it's a 650-mile round trip. And so the 10,000 miles per year is going to be an absolute nightmare. And this, I feel, is just the tip of the iceberg. These are just 3 comments from hundreds from various people in the disabled community who say the 10,000 miles is unjust, it's halved without a lot of consultation. And what I really want to know is what's your legal representation on this, if possible?
I mean, there's a few things in what you've just brought up. The freelancer who's travelling backwards and forwards to London, and it's going to cost him 25p a mile. Bear in mind that he can claim on his tax 45p a mile for transport, so he can get tax relief on that anyway. So you would need to look a bit deeper. Social media can be very inflammatory sometimes, can't it? And it just puts up the highlights rather than looks at any depth. And the person with the youngster who has to do 13,000 a year, so she's doing 3,000 extra. It's about £14 a week extra for her or him to be paying. And I appreciate that some can be quite a lot for some people, but Motability say that most people on their scheme do less than 7,500 miles, or an average of 7,500 miles a year. Now, I would have said that's a stronger argument than a legal argument, because if they're saying people are only doing 7,500 miles, why do they need to change the limit for the few people that go over? It makes no sense. What their logic is eating itself, and the same logic eats itself, if you will, for the tyres as well, because moving from 8 to 6 or 10 to 6, whatever it is, they say most people only use 2 in the life of their car, the 3 years life of their lease. So why bother to change it if it's not happening in the first place? So a legal challenge is going to be difficult, because you would have to show that it affects a specific group in the community. So you would have to find a specific group. I don't know what you would choose or who it would affect most, but perhaps someone with multiple sclerosis uses a car more often than someone with a different illness. And if you could show that it impacts one particular group more, then you might have a legal claim. You would have to do an awful lot of research to prove that it was affecting one group more.
We're going to come on to the tyres in just one second, but just from the statement that they gave us, they said that 73% of users, of Motability users, do under 10,000 miles, but that's still 1 in 4 users who are affected by the changes to the Motability scheme, and they have 890,000 daily users.
Yeah,
and that's obviously increasing. So there's quite a significant amount. That's almost 200, over 200,000 people who are affected by these changes. Yeah. They also said as well is since 2022, insurance has gone up by 62%. I mean, have they not heard of Go Compare? But anyway, that's a different. We'll come on to that. Now, the tyre situation has got me a bit worried. Okay, because they are reducing the tyre limit. Now, I'm going to talk to this about this personally. From a personal perspective, because I got a Motability car, and about a month ago, I had a tyre change. I had 4 tyres changed, not realising they were all illegal. My mistake. Okay, I understand the mileage allowance. Okay, and I understand the 25 pence per mile, but for me, this is a safety aspect. And if you've got an illegal tyre and you can't afford the £125 or £150 per tyre. Okay, because let's face it, the majority of people from the disabled community are on benefits, they're on low income. Okay, they could be driving around in unsafe cars. So while I say the mileage allowance, fine, that's not a safety aspect, it's a socialist aspect, yes. And the 25 pence a mile is a cost aspect. For me, tyre safety shouldn't be compromised. And I think they are compromising on the safety of this. And I just wanted to see what your legal ramifications on this, what this could be.
Unless it's kind of putting it out there, but I wonder if we could say that it unfairly affects the disabled community that are on benefits.
Yeah.
So is the disabled community that are on benefits and unable to work, those that are completely unable to work, so obviously lots of disabled people work, but I wonder if that's an argument that it's impacting on those more than it impacts on others, and potentially get us a day in court there.
As you know, finding accessible information is really hard. That's why Snowball exists. So what we're doing is we're trying to get small businesses to encourage to put all their information onto Snowball so people like me can find their business really easily. So whether you're a taxi firm in Aberystwyth with a wheelchair accessible vehicle, or you might be a hairdresser in Aberdeen or a pub on the Isle of Wight, it doesn't matter. You know, the disabled community want to get out and about. We want to enjoy the community. So put your information on there. It costs £49 a year. You can put your business link on there as well in your website, and it makes life easier for everyone to find accessible places really easily. Sign up today because everyone deserves everywhere.
Adrian, from a legal perspective, regarding, so for example, if we have the family who have got their child who goes to school and does 13,000 miles a year, so they're doing 3,000 miles more than the actual limit. Okay, so that's what, 750 quid a year, and that's just the basic. Okay, so from a legal perspective, okay, if they were taken to court for refusing to pay that £750, and they sat in front of a judge or a magistrate and they said, and they asked them, okay, what are you using your car for? And they turn around and say, well, we've got the Motability car because we're going to hospital appointments, we're taking our child to school, we're going for holidays, and we're just having, living our normal lives, we're doing the shopping. In what world, from my point of view, would the judge award that to the Motability scheme? Forget all the PR, because that would be a PR nightmare for the Motability scheme. Suing a family for £750 for not paying an excess mileage allowance after they've just halved it. And I'm just wondering, where would you sit legally? And if it did end up in court, do you think the judge would side with the family or Motability?
Unfortunately, the judges aren't allowed to look at things with a moral standpoint. They have to look at things with a legal standpoint. Now, what Motability have said is that existing leases will carry on as they are. They're not trying to change the lease that you've signed up to. But when you get a new lease, at the end of that lease, you'll sign a new one. So your new lease, your new contract, if you will have the new rules on it. Once you sign up to those new rules, you've signed up to the rules, unfortunately. And if you breach those rules, then you will end up in court, and you will end up having to pay. It won't be the magistrate's court because it's not going to be a criminal offence. You'll be in the county court. And for £750, it's going to be what we call a small claims court or a money claim online. But it's not within the judge's power to turn around and say, you've signed that contract, but it doesn't seem fair in your case. The judge has to say, you've signed the contract. These are the rules. Motability are entitled to enforce them. You knew the rules going into the contract, so you have to abide by them. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. The law is getting more and more like that. There's less and less of, if you like, of the sort of Lord Denning type judgments of the past, where he would try and put a moral spin on things, and change the law, if you like. Nowadays, judges tend to just follow the law verbatim. If they don't, they get appealed, and the law again is followed verbatim. So they don't have an awful lot of choice. That's the unfortunate thing about it. If you could have a court of moral justice, obviously it would be an entirely different thing.
What I will find very interesting is after a year, I would love the data to see how many people Motability have actually taken to court over excess mileage, because I don't think they'll actually take legal action against them. I think they'll threaten them, yes, by saying we're going to take legal action, but I can't see the Motability scheme suing their customers for taking their kids to school. I just can't see it happening.
Well, they're a business like any other business. So at the end of the day, they're responsible with the foundation. They're responsible to their trustees, etc. So I'm not sure that whether they would or wouldn't. But bear in mind, this is they've said 10,000 miles aggregated over 3 years. So it's going to be 3 years before you find out. So we're going to be 2030 before we're in court for anybody that might have exceeded and refused to pay.
You can take it in for a service every year if you want to, but it doesn't need to be serviced or MOT'd for 3 years. So you won't find out until the end of the actual lease whether or not you owe Motability money or not. And then again, they might have changed it again, because they change it every other week by the looks of
it. Yeah, well, the rules need to be challenged for sure. I mean, they're blaming the government. They're saying the government's tax increases has caused them the problems. They're saying the insurance increases has caused them the problems. Everything's about to change in the government anyway. We could see a complete backtrack on some of those tax changes. We could see all sorts of things happening in the future. Let's hope that common sense prevails. But if common sense doesn't prevail, I think it behoves the disabled community and their friends and perhaps the likes of me to stand up and say, this is bonkers. You're picking on some of the people who need the help most, and you shouldn't be doing it. Just as the black box campaign won, perhaps we need a mileage campaign now.
Yeah. The other thing I should say as well, in the statement that was provided by Motability, they did say that there has been a £300 million black hole caused by the Labour government in the way Motability has been funded and the way it can apply for tax relief. So Motability, while are making the changes, but they say it has been caused by the Labour government, who have basically forced their hand in making changes to the scheme. So I should put it out there that they did make this statement. I think it's only fair to say. So okay. Well, Adrian, thank you for coming onto the podcast today. It is our first podcast. We'll hopefully have you on again. And thanks to everyone who's listening. This is our first podcast, so please, we're not doing one of these every week. We're doing it when important matters in the disabled community. So please click the like, click the follow, click the subscribe button, and you'll get a notification of when the next podcast is around. Okay. And if you've been affected by these changes, we would like to hear from you. Please make a comment and please share this podcast as well. For anyone else who's listening, this is Snowball Podcast. Please download the Snowball app and leave reviews wherever you are. Thank you very much, Adrian, indeed, for your time. And thank you very much for listening to everyone.